What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 24 of Figureoutable. Today, we're going to talk about how to unlearn to be poor. Unlearning your poverty is a really big step towards obtaining financial freedom. And to me, when I talk about financial freedom, what I mean is being able to provide for myself, my family, being able to go after goals. I'm not talking about being obscenely wealthy. I'm talking about allowing yourself to have some breathing room so that every little expense that comes up that's a surprise doesn't break you. Now, for some people, that could mean investment portfolio that earns dividends and pays them on a monthly basis. And for others, it could mean a business that's fully profitable that pays all their bills. And for others, it could just mean a fat savings account. For the vast majority of us out there, and including most of you guys watching these episodes, I know for a fact that finances are a personal challenge. The first thing I'm going to start off by saying is we were tricked. When we were told not to talk about religion, politics, or money at the dinner table by our parents or our grandparents, we were taught that it's inappropriate to bring up these subjects. And all that really did was ensure that we didn't know how to handle these subjects when they came up, and we didn't know how to have conversations with one another. This episode is not going to be about politics or religion, but it is going to be talking about money. And I think one of the worst things that can happen to a child when they're born into a poor family is not talking about finances, how they work, and how you can benefit or you can suffer from them. Today, when we look at the vast majority of society, they're running up credit card debt. They have a bad credit score. They don't have $400 saved for incidental expenses. We're really struggling. And yet we're all still spending money on the luxuries that we don't really need, but we want. We get the new sneakers. We buy Uber Eats. We get the clothing that's name brand. We don't get secondhand clothes. There's a whole bunch of ways to shop and save. But when we're chasing the good feeling we get from buying something that we want, we're never going to have that financial independence. Nobody sat you down and told you to be poor forever, but someone taught you how. The vast majority of families that come from poverty, they don't understand how the credit system works. They don't understand how to balance a checkbook or build a budget. Unfortunately, when that's your learned environment, you're not going to break free from that cycle. If all you've ever seen is the adults in your lifetime spend money like it's going out of style, then you yourself are going to have bad spending habits. What's really important to mention is that it's not for you to blame your parents for not teaching you how to manage money. It's more so you can understand the pattern that created this poverty in your own life so that you can break the cycle. I'm not really big on blame because at the end of the day, even if it was somebody else's fault, it becomes your responsibility to fix it. If we live in a cycle where we blame all of the circumstances of our life that we don't like on the things that we couldn't change, then we live a really crappy life. Blame's really not important. Understanding where something comes from is. Unfortunately, the most expensive thing you own is a belief that you got for free. And what I mean from that is your mindset that you walk around with and carry is oftentimes that somebody's going to come and save you, or that the circumstances on their own are going to change when you're doing nothing differently. Literally this morning, I was talking with some of my team about people in the past who've borrowed money from me and not paid it back. One of the reasons why I often don't lend money is because the other person who's asking, they're not doing anything new. So if the circumstances that fell on them that require them to ask someone else to borrow money are the result of no voluntary change in their own life, me lending the money is just putting a band-aid on the wound. And oftentimes I won't see that money come back to me out of self-protection, that I'm not this bleeding heart that's going to go lend somebody $20. Oftentimes those requests are a lot more than $20. So the whole point of it is, if your life sucks right now and that belief system that you have that's allowed you to have a sucky life is persisting and you're doing nothing different, it's not going to change. And no one's going to swoop in and save you. And oftentimes, even if you won the lottery, you'd be dead broke in 5 years. So we got to fix the system that got you here. We got to have the awareness, understand that the ball is in your court to change, and that financial independence is something you either earn or you don't. You grew up trained to be poor. The other part of financial poverty is also mental poverty. That starts with the internal dialogue, which is usually a reflection of how someone spoke to you when you were a child. So if you live in your own head saying, I can't do it, I'm not worth it, it's not worth the effort, generally speaking, somebody showed you how to live that way when you were a child, and that echoes in your head for eternity unless you stop it. Poverty of the mind you can see around us all the time when we can't have dialogue with one another, lose our temper too quickly. We have the negative internal internal dialogue, that's poverty of the mind. It absolutely shows up in your bank account. Practical advice, I guess, before we go any further on what you can do to change is understand the difference between needs and wants. There's a big difference. You need to eat, but you want to eat the stuff that's bad for you or it costs more. There's a time and a place for it. You guys know that sometimes I'll spend my money unwisely, and most of the time I try to be frugal. Frugality is basically defined as being resourceful or prudent with your money, which means not spending it faster than you make it. I think all of us could benefit from a little bit of frugality from time to time. So to break the cycle, it just means telling yourself no when you want to say yes. It means not spending money on the phone app. It means not spending money on Uber Eats. It means waiting until the sneakers go on sale, especially if you're not making a lot of money. We've talked about in previous episodes the best way to interview for a job, the best way to build your resume, or how to get a promotion within your workplace. I'm going to remind you guys that either you are or you are not the person who works really hard and has great work ethic. That person who does work really hard and has great work ethic, they're that person 7 days a week, 365. They're not that way only when somebody promises to do right by them. They're not that way only when somebody pays them what they think they're worth. You either become the person who's worth the pay that's going to change your life, and you become the person who is going to be able to save money and build their credit back up, or you stay in the situation that you're in right now, which isn't helping anybody. Malcolm Gladwell is an author. He talks about a lot of things in the book called Outliers, and one of them is actually financial planning. One big point from that book is that money is not talked about openly in the poorest households. When you're a child growing up and your parents are not teaching you how to manage their money, you're not having the conversation, and when you stumble into adulthood, everything is almost too out of reach to grasp. For those of you who don't know, a credit score is something important to build so that you can obtain a loan from a bank or a financial institution to buy a house or buy a car. Buying a house has never been harder in today's economy, but buying a car is something that we all have to do. And if when you're 18 years old, you get your first credit card, you run up the debt, you stop paying the bill, it destroys your credit score. And what that means is when you go to buy a car, they're going to hit you with an exorbitant interest rate. Right now, market rates should be around 6-7% for a car loan. But if you have a bad credit score, they can hit you with a 22% interest rate. It'll crush you. It far exceeds the value of the car, and it puts you in a bind for something that you need as a necessity. You absolutely will need transportation unless you live in a big city that has public transit. So the vast majority of us have to cross that bridge sometime. And if you have a bad credit score, it's extremely important for you to realize that maybe you buy a temporary car that you can make payments on until your credit score repairs, and sell the car and get a new loan or refinance. Fortunately for you guys, refinancing a car loan is not as difficult as refinancing a house. So if you end up in a situation where you have a 22% interest rate, you've built your credit, it went from 500 to 700, you can go and get a new loan with a better rate, and it's not tremendously difficult. Kids are like sponges. So when we grew up in these different households, some of them being poor, and our parents only showed stress around money, we absorbed that emotion. And therefore, as adults, when we talk about money or bills, we get stressed out. And when we're stressed, we don't think clearly. I think a fundamental pattern of every episode that I talk about is that things go back to your first 7 years of life. A lot of your internal dialogue and your habits today and who you're trying to become is based on experiences that you had when you were really young. And recognizing that is the first step to trying to change something. So if your internal dialogue sucks because you had a parent or an adult that was talking down to you and making you feel worthless, you're not that kid anymore. And that should not be echoing in your head. Most of us are living in survival mode. We're doing it not just financially, we're doing it emotionally, and we're doing it with our time because we spend a lot of time on social media to try and feel good and get that dopamine rush from our doom scrolling. But survival mode when it comes to money means that you're making immediate decisions based on no planning that puts you in a deeper hole than you should be. A lot of times, if your environment is unstable, it's going to force you to make the worst decisions possible. It's not really because you're weak and it's not because you're broken. It's coming down to neuroscience or how your brain works. So I would say it's pretty natural. And a big thing to do when you're stressed about money is sit down and write it out. Only if you really spend the time with it can you try and make the best decision ahead. And some of you guys have decisions that are going to suck no matter what. But sometimes it's about limiting the suck and making sure it sucks as little as possible versus making an irrational decision that puts you into a bind. I talk to people all the time that have bad credit scores, multiple credit cards that are locked out. They've stopped paying. They have debt collectors up their butt. Quite frankly, once that pile gets too high, a lot of them have realized like, hey, I can't do anything about this. This is just a fact of life, but it's really not. The fortunate thing about the debt that you might be avoiding right now is that those debt collectors can't physically show up to your house to break your kneecaps and collect on the money. They have to go through legal and appropriate processes. So you have some time. And if during that time you decide to change some of your spending habits, pick up a second job, save some money, you can start to chip away at that debt. And that's probably the best and most ethical way to approach it. And so guys, if you're watching this and you haven't yet crossed the bridge of getting your first credit card and you're scared and you think credit cards are stupid, I'm just going to remind you that they are meant to be a tool on one side of the coin. On the other side, they're a trap. Credit card companies know full and well that the vast majority of customers are going to use their services and not be able to pay the full bill every single month. So if you want to build your credit score and you want to obtain financial freedom, it's important that when you use your credit card, you use it wisely. It's really not meant there to be an emergency get out of jail free card. It's meant to be something you use for the expenses that were going to happen no matter what. So if you get your first card and you have a $500 balance, don't max it out. Don't use all $500. Use it on just your gas. Get into the habit of buying the things you were going to buy and paying it up. And the benefit of it is not only you get an increased credit score, a better interest rate on your car loan, but you get points back from your purchases. Every major credit card company out there gives you a percentage back. It might be 1%, it might be 5%, it might be 3%, and that gets returned to you in form of points where you can then cash it out as cash or as gift cards. Every single year around Christmas time when I'm buying gifts, I use my credit card points. I save them up all year long, and if I have $1,000 in points to use, I use them on the gifts. It's my way of saving a couple bucks, but the prerequisite is that every month, at the end of the month, I pay that credit card off in full. I pay zero in interest, and that means that I'm using the credit card as a tool, and it's not being used as a trap to put shackles and chains on me for the rest of my life. I won't do it, won't allow it, and I don't want it for you guys. I got to grow up with a mom who worked really hard and showed me amazing work ethic, but also was frugal, which meant a lot of times I didn't get the brand new sneakers. She waited until they were on sale. When I first started working and having my own money, it was my turn to buy whatever I wanted, and nothing was going to hold me back from that. So I spent every dollar that I made buying things, especially when I wasn't particularly happy and I was struggling with various things in my life. Spending money made me feel good. You buy something new, it feels good, and then after it's been a couple of days, weeks, or even months, it doesn't feel good anymore. But you still spent that money and you can't get it back. If you spent it on a need, that's a different thing entirely. But if you spent it on a want, then there might be some remorse. And I'm not here to tell you to beat yourself up. I'm just here to tell you to change the pattern so that you can start spending your money better and save a couple of bucks. We talked about poverty in the household, in the mind, in the heart. What that does for a lot of you guys is it makes you distrust financial institutions because you don't know any better. It goes down to the simplest thing like avoiding a credit card because you feel like it doesn't provide any value, or maybe you know yourself and you know that you can't treat it responsibly. But there's a lot of institutions and tools out there to help you get ahead in life. And if you're not saving money, you won't get there. If you're 23 years old right now and you're watching this, we've talked about the power of compound interest, investing in a 401k, investing in a stock portfolio now while you're young is going to pay you dividends that you can actually eat from when you're 67. If you don't trust banks, if you don't trust financial institutions, you're going to live your life hand to mouth for the rest of it. I'm watching people do that right now that are in their 40s and 50s. They don't have $10 saved, and eventually our health fails all of us. I really don't want to see what the world is going to turn into when an entire generation of people who cannot afford to retire end up with health problems wandering the streets. It's going to get real ugly. It's way easier to change your financial trajectory if you're young and you start now, and it's still possible if you're older and watching this video right now. You can still save a couple of bucks and set yourself up to retire, but you have to start now, not tomorrow, and you can't do it yesterday, and not 2 months from now, but you got to start now. So let's recap this. Remember that you're not just poor financially, you're poor mentally. And if you change the poverty of the mind, you can change the poverty of your bank account. If you guys can start to see the pattern between your efforts and your attitude in life and how it results in the money that you earn and the money that you spend, you'll start to get some traction. Challenge yourself today. This week, when you're thinking about buying something on Uber Eats, go and pick it up instead. Maybe limit your purchases from 5 times a week to 3 times a week and set the money aside. It's going to be a lot easier for you guys to conceptualize saving money if you actually have the cash put into a jar and separated from your bank account. Making a habit of this and hiding money from yourself is a great way to start. Remember that you're in control. Even if your situation is bleak, you have the ability to make the change. Nobody's going to do it for you. Almost none of us are going to be lucky enough to win the lottery anytime soon. So just remember that whatever you learned before as a child, you can unlearn now as an adult. You can talk to yourself better. You can conceptualize money better. You can trust some of these tools that are there for you to use to help you. And you can also hit the subscribe button down below to show a little bit of love. As always, guys, I appreciate it. Have a great day.